9 spine-chilling neighbor encounters. Unexplainable secrets of the cursed ones next door revealed. Sarah felt the weight of her exhaustion as she walked home after yet another grueling night shift. The streetlights flickered to life, casting eerie shadows on the quiet street of Maplewood Hollow. There was something unnerving about the usual tranquility. It felt like the calm before a storm. In the past, she walked the street with a sense of comfort, but tonight the air was thick, almost electric, buzzing with an unspoken dread as she turned the corner. She spotted Emma playing with the neighborhood kids. They gathered around a newly appeared symbol on the sidewalk, a strange marking that looked almost like an ancient rune. The children huddled close, their whispers sending chills down Sarah's spine. Their smiles twisted into something unrecognizable, as if they were caught in a spell. Panic clawed at her insides. This wasn't the innocent playtime she had expected to see. "Emma!" she called, her voice strained with urgency. But the little girl didn't respond. Her gaze locked on the strange symbol, transfixed, a knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. She could feel a shadow creeping in, enveloping her once safe neighborhood in a suffocating darkness. Rumors had begun to swirl, odd noises emanating from the boarded-up house next door, where Mrs. Green had made her home. The whispers at work had painted a picture of a once-respected woman who had fallen into disgrace, accused of dabbling in witchcraft. Neighbors avoided her, but now they exchanged furtive glances and hushed tones. Something wicked lingered like smoke on the edges of their well-manicured lawns. The break-ins, the missing pets, the flickering lights, it all led back to that house. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the twilight deepened, Sarah's heart raced. She approached the children cautiously, her instincts screaming for her to retreat. The neighborhood seemed to breathe differently. The laughter turned to whispers. The streetlights flickered uncertainly. A sudden rustle came from the bushes, and she felt the heat of a watchful gaze penetrating her back. Then, she saw the distorted figure of Mrs. Green emerging from shadows. Her face held a grotesque grin, her eyes hollow, yet they sparkled with something sinister. The once friendly neighbors encircled Sarah and Emma, eyes glowing with an anticipation that screamed malevolence. Fear crashed over Sarah like a tidal wave. She reached for Emma, her fingers trembling. Shock rippled through her as she looked into the faces she had thought she knew, now twisted with dark intentions. The ground pulsed beneath her, resonating with a kind of energy that felt alive and hungry as Emma gazed up at her. Entranced, Sarah grappled with horrible realizations. This was no ordinary neighborhood. Their fates were entangled with the darkness lurking next door. The stories, the symbols. This was the home she had embraced, wrapping her life in comforting predictability. But now it felt like a fragile facade, ready to shatter, with the weight of dread crashing onto her chest. She clutched Emma tighter. Could they escape? Would this twisted neighborhood consume them both? The night was far from over, and terror had only just begun to awaken. The air felt thick with darkness as Sarah's heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out the whispers of the children. Every muscle in her body screamed to run. Yet here she stood, frozen in horror. The peculiar glow from the children's eyes, once innocent, now sent a shiver down her spine. They formed a tight circle around Emma, who remained enchanted, unblinking at the mysterious symbol painted on the ground. "Emma!" Sarah shouted again, desperately pulling her daughter's small hand, but it felt like grasping at smoke. The air around them shimmered with something not entirely of this world, a heavy energy that coiled around her like a vice. The laughter of the other children morphed into dissonant laughter, an unsettling harmony that filled the night air. It was as if they were puppets, moving to the beckoning of an unseen master. Sarah felt an ache of desperation claw at her insides. What had they done to her daughter? Mrs. Green stepped closer, her face a twisted mask of delight and despair. You need to join us, Sarah. The awakening is near. Her voice slithered smoothly through the air, seductive and terrifying all at once. Join you? Sarah stammered, her breath hitching in her throat. What are you talking about? But Mrs. Green merely pointed an elongated finger toward the symbol, the edges illuminated in a ghostly white light. Sarah's eyes widened as it pulsated gently, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Instinctively, Sarah turned to the children. This isn't a game. Emma, we need to leave. She yanked at her daughter, but the grip Emma had on the symbol firmed, as though it had binding power over her. Horror turned into frustration, and a surge of desperation coursed through Sarah. Step away from her. The words felt raw. Tearing from her throat, one of the children spoke, his voice cold and hollow. She has chosen. We are all chosen. A collective nod came from the others, their heads bobbing like sinister marionettes. A clang echoed from the house next door, the front door slamming open. Shadows surged out, flickering shapes that seemed to beckon with darkness. Sarah's heart raced, each pulse contrasting the serene yet ominous stillness of the night. She had heard the tales, whispers of a dark rite, a gathering beneath the veil of night. Had those tales come to life? As a horde of murmuring shadows poured into the circle, their malevolence hung heavily. Sarah felt the warmth leave her limbs, replaced by an icy grip of terror. Emma, please, she begged, feeling the weight of time pressing down on her, suffocating her resolve. Suddenly, the symbol beneath them flared brilliantly, a surge of light followed by an engulfing blackness. Sarah shielded her eyes, but when she looked again, one child had vanished, leaving a faint echo of laughter as a twisted reminder of what laid ahead. Frantically, she wrestled with her daughter's grip. Emma! But she was too late. The child circled the sigil, arms outstretched toward the shadows. They reached, and in that moment, Sarah saw something shift in her daughter's eyes, an unsettling glow. A disinterest to return. The other children joined in the eerie chant, a vibrant flux of words that seemed to stretch and claw at the night air. It felt as if the very ground beneath their feet was pulling them into the depths of something unfathomable. Run! A wild shout erupted from somewhere behind the children. Sarah's heart lurched at the sound. But from the shadows emerged the figure of a neighbor, someone she recognized but could not name in her panic. Was he here to help? Or was he merely another pawn in this twisted game? The light flickered again as she realized the stakes had moved beyond a mere neighborhood watch. Something far deeper threatened to consume them all. Emma, don't you love me? Her voice escaped in desperation, but the answer hung in the air, as chilling as the shadows that surrounded them. As the chanting intensified, she weighed her options. Plunge into the void and save her daughter, or flee and risk losing her forever. The night swelled with a foreboding silence. The boundaries between light and darkness began to fade, and Sarah stood at the precipice of a choice that would forever alter their lives. What would she decide in the face of insurmountable terror? Would the neighbors reveal their true purpose, or would she stumble blind into the heart of the unfathomable? Panic clawed at Sarah's throat, choking her. Emma's eyes were vacant, as if the child she knew was already lost. The chant grew louder, each word wrapping itself around Sarah like barbed wire. They were calling her, teasing her with darkness. Her mind raced. She had to act. Emma! The sound of her daughter's name felt like a pebble thrown into an abyss. The children shifted in unison, their movements jerky, puppet-like, but their voices harmonized in a chilling chorus, growing impatient with their mother's turmoil. Join us, Sarah. Mrs. Green's voice cut through the rising chaos. Join the awakening. In one fluid motion, Sarah lunged forward. She grabbed at Emma's shoulders, twisting her round to face her. Look at me, please. The glow in Emma's eyes flickered, a momentary flash of recognition. But a shadow flickered behind Sarah, dark and engulfing. Time is slipping, the boy with the cold voice shouted, his eyes glittering like shards of ice. It felt as if the air solidified with a palpable dread, thick enough to choke on. Stop this, Sarah cried, But the children merely laughed, a sound that echoed with echoes of what had been, mixing heart-wrenching joy with horrifying malice. The shadows were closing in, weaving together to form a looming figure tall and ravenous. It moved with a grace that was unnatural, its body a blend of deep night and whispered fear. Sarah looked back toward her neighbor, trying to gauge whether he was ally or threat, but he stood frozen, a still statue trapped in the grips of enchantment. "Help us!" Her scream cracked the air, the word echoing futilely against the night. In that moment, the figure emerged from the shadows, revealing a gaunt face twisted into an expression of pleasure, as if he had been starved for this moment. "Help you?" he crooned, grinning wide, teeth bright against the dark. "But you're the one who gave it all up when you set foot here." Panic surged again. The ground trembled. The symbol pulsed beneath her, an insatiable heartbeat beckoning to her daughter. Emma's expression shifted only briefly before returning to its vacant stare, her grip firm, unyielding. Sarah felt the air chill, the laughter of the children morphing into something more sinister. It echoed with every promise they made to plunge deeper into darkness. "Stay back," Sarah shouted, sounding more like a plea than a command. She couldn't lose Emma, not to this insanity. Desperation coursed through her veins, igniting her spirit. With every ounce of strength, Sarah wrenched Emma away from the symbol. But in doing so, a scream erupted from the children, not of childhood joy but of something ancient and primal. It was the last sound she wanted to hear before tearing her daughter away, but it pierced the air, echoing around them and chilling her spine. The children knelt, collective faces turned toward the sky as if receiving some unholy blessing. The shadows pulled tighter around Sarah, twisting and coiling, whispering secrets meant to rattle her resolve. "Let go of me," Emma cried, a flicker of life sparking again, but it was swallowed by the choir of shadows. Sarah's heart sank as she saw the rest of the children reach out to her. She had to move. The pulsating darkness felt suffocating. With a mighty push, she dove forward, breaking the circle, Emma's pleas mingling with the shadows' laughter. But as she pulled her daughter away, the faces of the children contorted in a new form of rage, their innocent laughter replaced by vengeful screams. The shadows plugged into their cries, swirling and spiraling into a vortex of despair. Sarah stumbled, nearly losing her footing. She felt their power raw and intoxicating as they sought to take everything in their grasp. She had to decide. "Come with me," she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. The moment was fragile, but she felt a wave of urgency as she glanced back at the ominous figure now advancing slowly toward her. Its eyes glowed with hunger, drawing her into the abyss, while behind her, the grip of the other children weakened slightly. "Mommy!" Emma cried again. The darkness clawed, but Sarah saw a glimmer of her daughter within. Summoning her deepest resolve, she lunged toward the street, dragging Emma with her, heart beating in sync with their desperate escape. But the unseen pull from behind sent a chilling cold down her spine. "Stop them!" they shrieked in unison, the shadows reaching out as if trying to tear them back into the twisted mirth. Was she too late? Fingers of darkness reached for her, and time unraveled as the sacrifice loomed. Would they truly be free, or were they merely stepping away from one nightmare into another? As they neared the threshold of safety, the air crackled with uncertainty. When the final echoes of that laugh hit the night, Sarah realized they were not finished yet. The awakening hung heavy in the air, waiting like a predator in the night. Suddenly, a new voice, low and throaty, shuddered from the depths. You can't escape its time for the reckoning. Could she outrun the horror that chased her? Or would it finally close in for good? They burst out onto the street, gasping for breath as the darkness recoiled behind them. Sarah's heart hammered like a drum in her ears, drowning out the faded laughter that still echoed from the depths. Emma, pulled tightly to her side, looked up with wide, fearful eyes. "Mommy, what is happening?" she whimpered, the shadows still crawling at the edges of her vision. "Just hold on, sweetheart. We're going to be okay." Sarah forced the words out, though they felt hollow against the weight of dread pressing down on her chest. The street was eerily quiet, all the streetlights flickering like dying stars. The night offered no solace, just an open darkness where something unseen lurked, watching. Sarah's gaze darted, desperate for signs of life, for help, but the houses stood like twisted guardians, silent and indifferent. "Why did you bring me here?" Emma's voice trembled, crawling into Sarah's heart like a needle. She couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't reveal that she had thought moving to Harmony Hill would be bliss, that the town seemed perfect at first glance. She squeezed Emma's hand tighter. "I wanted to give you a better life," she said, though their new home felt more like a haunting now. "We need to get to the car. We can drive away." But as Sarah took a step, the shadows shifted, dark tendrils rising from the ground like serpents, weaving together into grotesque shapes. They slithered along the pavement, inching toward them like a predator playing with its prey. A low chuckle rippled through the night. "Did you think it would be so easy?" The figure emerged from the darkness, the gaunt man with the twisted grin, illuminated briefly by the flickering streetlight. His eyes glowed with an unsettling hunger. "You've crossed into our realm, Sarah." "No," she shouted, pulling Emma closer. The girl looked perplexed, caught between terror and some strange recognition. "You're not real." "Oh, I am very real," he hissed, his elongated fingers tracing the air like he was painting art in the darkness. "And so are the children you tried to abandon. You can't escape what's inside you. This is why we chose you." "Chose me? For what?" Sarah's voice faltered, the weight of her own fear closing in. She could feel the shadows scraping at her ankles, as if trying to tether her to this nightmarish reality. "They need a vessel, a bridge into this world." He smiled, revealing pointed teeth. "You are that vessel, Sarah. You've carried their darkness all along." Time felt suspended. Emma's eyes glistened with innocent confusion. "Mommy?" she said softly, but there was something different in her voice, something almost anticipatory. And it clicked. The way Emma had changed since they moved here, the late-night whispers, the subtle darkness that drifted in her laugh. Sarah's blood ran cold. "No, not you too." The man laughed, an echoing sound that vibrated with a sinister rhythm. "She belongs with us now." Then the shadows surged forward, a tidal wave of malice ready to pull them both under. Sarah looked at her daughter, the girl she fought so hard to save. Would she let them take her? Gathering her strength, Sarah reached for the glimmer of hope that flickered within. "Emma, fight it. Come back to me." But the shadows had their grip, pulling at both mother and daughter, wrapping tighter, tearing at the fabric of their bond. Would it be too late to reclaim her child? "Join us," echoed the sinister chorus, and for the first time, Sarah's heart felt the strain of uncertainty. Was her child lost forever? As the darkness loomed closer, a new thought crept in, a terrible realization that gave her pause. What if she wasn't meant to escape? Just as the darkness began to envelop them completely, a flash of light burst forth in the desolate street, a beacon, a siren that cut through the night. "What now?" Sarah gasped, feeling a spark of confusion as they were caught in a bizarre spotlight. The shadows hissed and recoiled, the laughter fading into panicked whispers. "It's not over, it's just beginning." What sinister force had arrived now to alter their fate? The light was blinding, forcing Sarah to squint against its intensity. She couldn't understand how a spotlight had appeared in such a desolate place, but in this moment of chaos, it felt like a lifeline. Emma's grip slackened, and for one desperate second, Sarah felt hope blossoming like a wildflower in her chest. "Stay close, Emma," she shouted, but the child didn't respond. Instead, she stared blankly into the light, entranced, as if something whispered secrets only she could hear. The gaunt man shrieked, his face twisting with anger. "No, you can't." But the light pulsed, vibrant and alive. It pushed back the shadows, and they squirmed like worms in an open hand. Sarah felt her breath quicken, each inhalation sharper than the last. "We have to move." She tugged on Emma's hand, but the girl remained rooted, her eyes glazed over. "Emma, please." Panic seeped into Sarah's words as she felt the shadows skimming the edges of her world. Then, something within the light shifted. Figures emerged, silhouette shapes of children, like wisps, with gossamer hair and pale laughter that echoed with a haunting melody. Their faces were obscured, but their eyes sparkled with an otherworldly glimmer. They circled around Emma, urging her closer. "Join us! Join us!" Their voices chimed, sweet as stolen candy yet laced with something darker. "Stop! Get away from her!" Sarah screamed, tightening her grip around Emma's wrist, pulling her back. The girl blinked, slowly shaking off the haze. "Mommy?" Emma whispered, her voice small and fragile. The child Sarah recognized flickering back into existence. But before Sarah could breathe out a sigh of relief, the gaunt man lunged forward, weaving through the illuminated figures, his fingers outstretched like claws. "You think this light can save you? You already belong to me." "There's still time," one of the children whispered, a soft, melodic sound that wrapped around Sarah like a warm embrace. "You can save her. Stay close," Sarah said again, almost as a prayer, as she dragged Emma toward the encroaching light. The shadows hissed, their forms transpiring into creatures of darkness, elongated and gnarled with claw-like hands reshaping the very air around them. Just as they reached the edge of the beam, it flickered, dimming for a heartbeat. In that split second, everything shifted. The children with their glowing eyes morphed into twisted forms, smirking as the gaunt man chuckled deeply, echoing the malignant joy of triumph. "Embrace the gift. Why fight? It's in your blood." Sarah could feel the heat of the shadows closing in. "Emma, listen to me," she cried, holding her daughter's face in both hands, looking deep into her eyes, willing her to understand. "You must fight. You're stronger than them." Suddenly, a roar erupted from the depths of the night, a guttural sound that shook the ground beneath them. The shadows recoiled, momentarily disoriented, and in that moment Emma blinked. Shivers raced down Sarah's spine as she felt her daughter's gaze sharpen, filled with recognition and defiance. "No!" Emma shouted, her small voice powerful enough to cut through the chaos. "You're not going to take me." One heartbeat passed, and everything crashed inwards. The light pulsed angrily. Shadows flared. The gaunt man faltered. But then Sarah saw something that froze her blood. A darkness, deeper and more sinister, emerged from the street's mouth. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and as it approached, the gaunt man's smile widened in ecstatic anticipation, a twisted pleasure at the chaos unfolding. Their fate twisted around them like a noose, tightening and threatening to pull them under once again. "Run!" Sarah shouted, not knowing if she meant to escape or plunge deeper into the beckoning shadows. But before they could move, the light flickered one last time. The choice hung precariously in the air. Would they withstand this final onslaught, or were they destined to be engulfed forever? A whisper brushed Sarah's ear, chilling her to the bone. "The darkness will always find you. When you run, the showdown was imminent." Who would survive this nightmarish dance between shadow and light? The shadows twisted like serpents, gnashing their teeth and reaching out towards Sarah and Emma. The air thickened, weighted with an oppressive dread. Sarah's heart thrummed wildly, each beat echoing a desperate call to action. She felt the cold sweat trickle down her back. "Emma, we need to go. Now." Yet Emma stood frozen, her small body rigid. The gleam in her eyes shattered the hope Sarah had clung to. The girl's face drained of color as she pointed toward the darkness. "Mommy, look!" Out from the inky void emerged a creature of nightmares, its body contorted and oozing shadows that stretched and curled like gnarly fingers. Its head was a featureless black sphere, an abyss that absorbed even the light surrounding it. I can feel it," Emma gasped, her voice trembling. "It's pulling me." "No." Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. She yanked on Emma's hand, trying to tear her away from the magnet of despair. The shadows lashed out, eerie tendrils sniping at their legs, wrapping around Emma's ankles like chains. "Please, fight!" Sarah screamed, desperation spilling from her lips as she squeezed Emma's hand tighter. The gaunt man laughed, a low and rasping sound that vibrated through the ground. "Look at her. She's already mine." In a flurry of motion, shadows coalesced around the man, forming a cloak of dark energy that rippled with malice. He strode forward with triumphant arrogance, reveling in the fear drenching the air. Something in Sarah snapped. "You won, take her." She planted her feet sturdily, facing the gaunt man with defiance bubbling up like fire inside her. "Emma, remember who you are. You're stronger than this." Emma's expression shifted, her fear battling with a glimmer of recognition. A hard-set line formed on her small mouth. "I'm not afraid." With newfound energy, she pulled away from the shadow's grip. The shadows writhed as if hit by a strong wind, their hold loosening. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was short-lived. The creature at the edge of the street lurched forward, dark tendrils extending like lightning emitting vipers, ready to ensnare them. "Run!" Sarah cried again, her voice raw with urgency. They dashed towards the flickering light, pushing past the wavering silhouettes of children who now looked more like demons, their faces grinning with malice, almost urging the mother and daughter to join their ranks. The gaunt man positioned himself at the edge of the light, his eyes burning with unfathomable hunger as they lunged towards the light. The world around them transformed. The light flared blindingly, forcing Sarah to shield her eyes. The shadows hissed, retreating like smoke before a wildfire. But the creature remained, its scream piercing the night with an otherworldly echo. "Emma!" Sarah cried, trembling as she felt the girl slip her hand from hers. For an instant, heart-stopping terror held her breath captive. Emma stood rooted in the glow, conflicted emotions churning on her face, balancing precariously between the realm of hope and darkness. "Mommy, I can do it. I can make them go away." "Don't!" Sarah shouted, her voice raw and desperate. "You don't understand." "It's not." But before she could finish, Emma closed her eyes tightly, drawing from deep within. The light surged wildly, illuminating the shadows with blinding brilliance. The gaunt man recoiled, and a guttural roar erupted from the creature, its body writhing in agony. Then Emma spoke, her voice shaking yet resolute. "No more." In that moment, shadows began to disintegrate, swirling into nothingness like ashes on the wind. A cacophony of shrieks filled the air, a mixture of rage and despair. Sarah's heart soared for a fleeting second until the ground trembled again, and she realized something more terrifying was about to erupt. The creature lunged, a dark wave crashing forward, obliterating everything in its path. Sarah grabbed Emma, yanking her back just as they were both swallowed by shadow. "Hold on, Emma!" Sarah shouted, feeling the world twist and pull them into an abyss that threatened to consume them both. The scream of the gaunt man echoed, fusing with the monstrous roar as Sarah fought against the dark tide. All hope hung by a thread, and she understood. They were not finished yet. The real struggle had only just begun, and the churning darkness, the shadows whispered promises of torment. You cannot escape. What lay ahead unfolded like a nightmare too vivid to comprehend. Would light break through, or would they be lost forever? As they plummeted deeper into the unknown, that question haunted them with every heartbeat. The plunge into darkness was disorienting. It was like falling into a pit of ice, the cold curling around Sarah and Emma, seeping into their bones. They tossed and turned, trapped in a void that gripped them with cruel fingers. The howling sounds of despair echoed, wrapping around them like a shroud. Sarah squeezed Emma's hand tighter, panic coursing through her bloodstream. "Stay with me," she shouted, her voice barely cutting through the cacophony. The shadows pressed in. Her heart raced, feeling as if it would burst. They crashed against something solid, the impact jarring. In the dark, an unknown surface lay below them, slick and unforgiving. Sarah's breath quickened, her mind racing. What if this was it? What if they were trapped forever? Emma's small voice, fragile but fierce, broke through her thoughts. "Mommy, I'm right here," Sarah replied, forcing her voice to be calm even as desperation clawed at her throat. The darkness began to shift, writhing as if alive. Splintered images flickered in the void, shapes and figures dancing just out of reach. Whispers echoed, drawing closer, circling them like predators honing in on prey. "You don't belong here." They crept into her ears, icy and taunting. "You are unwelcome. I can hear them," Emma cried, her voice trembling. "Make them stop." Instinctively, Sarah turned to her, furious yet terrified. The shadows shifted, growing bolder as if feeding off their fear. "Close your eyes, Emma. Focus on my voice." They huddled together, and as they did, Sarah felt an inexplicable warmth ignite deep within her. "We fight this together." With a nod, Emma closed her eyes tighter, and her breathing steadied. "Together," she whispered, and Sarah mirrored her affirming tone. The darkness around them trembled, flaring at the edges where light battled to break through. It was as if some unseen force was ripping at the fabric of the night, trying to claw its way into the brave light forged by their unity. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled as a howling rush surged like a gale, scattering the whispers into fragments. "No! You cannot resist!" The gaunt man's voice thundered from afar, full of rage but diffusing like smoke. As if sensing its masterous anger, the dark blur pulsated, coiling tighter around them. Sarah gasped as confusion swept through her. "It's like it knows." Dark tendrils surged forward, laced with spite. Sarah felt them grip her ankle, a vice-like squeeze threatening to drag her back into the abyss. She gasped and twisted, trying to break free, but the darkness locked tighter. "Together, Mommy," Emma urged, voice trembling but steely. "Don't let go." Summoning her courage, Sarah planted her feet, her heart surging with defiance. She took a deep breath and shouted into the shadows. "You may have taken her once, but you won't get us again." A bright light exploded from where they stood, blinding and fierce, pushing against the shadows with relentless fury. The air thickened around them, humming with energy as the creature recoiled. The gaunt man's laughter turned to a screech of disbelief, and it started to fracture. The world around them splintered as the shadows began to unwind, torn apart by the sheer force of their resolve. "Keep going, Emma. We're almost there." As the darkness began to peel back, they caught sight of a shimmering doorway beyond. It flickered like a mirage, a portal back to safety. Just a few more steps. But the shadows surged forward, faster than before, desperate to claim their prize. An icy grip twisted around Sarah as she felt Emma's hand slip from hers. The portal was closing. "Emma!" But it was too late. The darkness surged, engulfing Sarah in a suffocating embrace. The pressure built to a fever pitch, her heart pounding like drums in her ears, as she heard Emma's terrified scream. "Mommy!" Sarah's heart cracked. With the last of her strength, she hurled herself toward the light, feeling the shadows claw at her back with furious desperation. As hope swirled around her, she barely glimpsed Emma being pulled back, the dark fingers wrapping tighter around her daughter. "Fight, Emma!" she cried, the words tearing from her throat in a final plea filled with anguish and determination. The light flickered more brightly as the shadows howled, a terrible symphony that promised endless despair. Sarah braced herself, closing her eyes and pushing all her love down the connection they shared, willing it to reach Emma before the darkness consumed them both. Just as she felt the weight of despair blanket her, a blast of light enveloped her, and she was thrust through the doorway, free but terrified. The darkness receded behind her, but the familiar warmth of Emma was now cruelly absent. The realization hit her harder than any shadow. They were separated. A fear more profound than any darkness loomed before her. "Emma!" she screamed into the void, her voice echoing back, devoid of hope. What lies ahead? The truth buried in the shadows or the path to find her daughter? The horror of the unknown awaited her, pulling her deeper into the chaos. Would she dare to enter the darkness again? Sarah stumbled forward, gasping for breath, her heart racing, pounding against her ribcage like a frantic drum. The light around her was strange, a dull glow that hardly chased away the lingering shadows. She blinked, her surroundings shifting into view: a dimly lit hallway, the walls lined with peeling wallpaper, echoes of a life long forgotten. "Emma!" Her voice cracked, desperation spilling into the air like a noxious fog. Panic gnawed at her insides. Each step felt heavier, burdened by the haunting memory of her daughter's terrified scream. The hallway seemed endless, twisting and winding like a dreadful maze. Flickering lights overhead buzzed like angry hornets, and shadows pooled at her feet, lurking just out of sight, as if they were waiting for her to falter. Sarah's breaths came in sharp bursts as her mind raced. She had to find Emma. But where was she? The darkness had taken her. It had felt so alive, as if it craved suffering, thriving on her fear. As she pressed on, a door creaked open at the end of the hallway, revealing a faint light spilling out. A low whisper echoed from the other side, soft yet unmistakably sinister. "Help me." The voice sent icy tendrils creeping up Sarah's spine. She hesitated, every instinct screaming for her to run. But Emma's cry was the only thing that mattered now. "Emma, is that you?" she called out, forcing herself closer. There was a pause. Then it came again, louder, tinged with panic. "Mommy, please, I can't see." Heart racing, Sarah shoved the door open, stumbling into the room. Inside, the flickering glow illuminated a dusty living room, shrouded in cobwebs and memories. Old furniture loomed like sentinels watching her every move, their fabric soiled and worn. But Emma wasn't there. Only a cracked mirror hung on the wall opposite her, reflecting a hollow visage, her eyes wide, brimming with terror. The reflection of darkness loomed just behind her, pulsing, ready to strike. She spun around, dread pooling in her gut. Where was Emma? "Emma!" she shouted again, her voice breaking. Suddenly, the air grew cold. A chill washed over her, bitter and biting. The shadows at the edges of the room swelled, twisting with malicious intent. They morphed into bubbling shapes, darting forward, hungry. "Leave me alone!" Sarah shouted, drawing on every ounce of courage within her. She stumbled backward, her heart thudding louder as the shadows advanced. They whispered, their voices a disturbing chorus. "You should not have come here. Join us." "No. I want tea." She clenched her fists. "I'll do anything to find my daughter." The shadows paused, as if emboldened by her declaration. They circled around her, tightening like a noose, their whispers becoming frenzied, filled with promise and threat. The gaunt man's mocking laughter resounded through the air, echoing within her mind. A chilling reminder that she couldn't escape the horror. Then, without warning, the floor trembled. Clouds of dust rained down as the room warped and undulated, pulling at her like quicksand. Fear scalded her blood, tightening her throat. She fought to keep her footing, but as the shadows closed in, a dark tendril snaked out, curling around her ankle and dragging her dangerously close to the void. "Help me!" That voice, so familiar, pierced through the chaos. Emma's voice again. "Mommy, please." She felt it, a force of will igniting deep within her, surging forward. Sarah roared, breaking free from the shadow's grasp, surging toward the flickering light once more. "Emma, hold on. I'm coming." But as she sprinted back into the hallway, the shadows erupted behind her, howling, shrieking in fury. Each stride felt like an eternity, the gnashing whispers clawing at her sanity, urging her to give in. "Only darkness awaits you." But she wouldn't stop. She couldn't think of anything else. Emma depended on her unwavering strength. She could feel their connection. She just needed to follow it, to navigate through this nightmare. Another door appeared, ajar, light seeping through the crack, bathing her in warmth. Hope surged again, but just as quickly dread clawed. Beneath the surface, would this door lead to Emma or deeper into the depths of despair? With a shattering crash, the shadows lunged forward, and in that final moment, Sarah had to choose. Would she face them once more? Only one question remained: what awaited her on the other side? Gritting her teeth, she pushed the door open, stepping into the unknown. The door swung open, revealing a small room bathed in a bright, golden light that felt almost like a warm embrace. Sarah squinted against the brilliance, her heart pounding, praying it wasn't another trap. Everything seemed still, eerily silent, yet the air thrummed with unresolved tension. "Emma," she called, her voice trembling. There was no response, just a chilling echo. The room looked harmless, filled with trinkets and toys scattered across the floor, remnants of a child's life in a place that felt decades old. A rocking horse stood in the corner, its paint chipped, the wood splintered. All at once, it felt like she had stepped into a shrine of lost innocence. Her instinct told her that something was off. The sudden silence was suffocating, and the light was too inviting. She ventured further inside, the shadows clinging to the edges, watching. Was she being lured into a false sense of security? "Emma, where are you?" The question hung in the air like a whispered prayer, carrying her desperation. Then she saw it, a glimmer of movement. A shape darted behind an old plush bear, leaving behind a trail of darkness. Panic gripped her, tightening her throat. "Emma!" She lunged forward, knocking the bear aside. Instead of her daughter, she found a small radio, its light flickering as if it were alive. It crackled to life, a disjointed tune seeping out, mixing with the oppressive air around her. "Help me," the voice echoed once more, but it was no longer Emma's. Twisted, distorted, and mocking, Sarah's blood ran cold. "No, not you." The radio buzzed with laughter, a sinister, echoing sound that grated against her already fraying nerves. Shadows flitted closer, weaving around her ankles, grazing her skin. She could feel their chill consuming the warmth of the light around her. They whispered to her, unbearable, relentless. "Stay with us, no." She screamed, breaking the spell, the words spilling out like a torrent. "You won't take me. I will find her." Just then, the walls began to shudder, the structure groaning like a living thing. The door behind her slammed shut, sealing her in this false sanctuary. The warmth drained, leaving a suffocating chill. The shadows swirled, gathering strength, the whispers intensifying, a chorus of agony. "You've come too far, join us." It was as if they were pinning her in place, each voice echoing with the pain of countless souls lost in this wretched place. Desperation surged through her. Emma needed her. Sarah would not be trapped here. With a surge of fierce determination, she ripped the radio from the wall, its cord trailing like a lifeline. She threw it against the floor, shattering it into countless fragments. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, a collective gasp of disbelief vibrating in the air. A crack of light burst from the remains, illuminating the darkness and revealing a hidden door behind the shattered remains. "Emma!" she screamed, her heart racing. The voices began to shriek as if the light burned them. "Emma! Please!" She bolted toward the new door, fear-hungry shadows scrambling to cling to her. But she pushed through the threshold as the howls grew louder, desperate. The door led to a staircase spiraling down into darkness. The air thickened, suffocating. But there was a faint glimmer at the bottom, a light beckoning her, a flickering hope amongst despair. "Mommy!" The cry shot through her like a blade, unmistakably Emma's. She took a deep breath and leaped down the steps, ignoring the gnashing malice around her. The walls vibrated with rage as if the abyss below was calling to reclaim its prey. Adrenaline surged, fueling her descent. As she neared the bottom, a sharp pain lanced through her leg, and she stumbled forward, barely catching herself. Then she froze. Before her was a chilling tableau, dark figures silhouetted against the glow, surrounded by shadows whispering of unspeakable horrors. "Welcome, Sarah." The voice was a deep, twisted echo that chilled her to the bone. And then she saw them, the smiling faces of children. But their eyes were hollow, void of any hope, just a reflection of despair. "All who enter become one with us." As they reached out toward her, darkness behind her surged, filling the staircase with the thunderous roars of those that lay within. Emma felt like the last tether snapped. And in that moment, everything collapsed into a chilling scream of darkness, pulling her closer into its maw. What awaited in this merging of worlds? Would Sarah embrace the darkness or claw her way back into the light? The answer hovered just beyond reach, ever present, as she stood at the brink of an unimaginable choice. The shadows swirled violently, echoing with the shrieks of lost souls, twisted forms grasping toward Sarah with desperate need. "Join us," they whispered, their voices a haunting harmony that carved through the air. each syllable a reminder of the darkness threatening to claim her. It was a taunt, laced with anguish, a siren-esque call that promised safety in the void. But deep inside, a fire ignited within Sarah. She felt Emma's presence flickering like a candle on the edge of a storm, a beacon urging her forward. Time slowed as she stood at the precipice, the silhouettes of children moving like shadows, looming like phantoms in the fluttering light. Their faces were blank slates, devoid of emotion, reflecting the emptiness threatening to engulf her. "Mommy!" Emma cried again, and with that pure note of desperation, Sarah pushed back against the malice swirling around her, conjuring strength from places she never knew existed. "I hear you. I'm coming." She waded through the black tide, a small figure in the eye of the storm. With every step, she fought against the gripping tendrils trying to pull her back. "You can't have her," she screamed into the dark, the rage boiling inside her, piercing through the fear. But the shadows lunged forward, a collective force desperate to consume her. The gaunt man appeared at the forefront, his eyes aglow with satisfaction, an embodiment of the nightmares that plagued her every thought. "You belong to us. Your power will make you a ruler in this realm." "No, I will not be your pawn." Sarah felt the fury twisting into a blade within, sharpened by sheer will. She turned toward the children, their vacant gazes linking with hers. "Listen to me. You can be free. Fight this." The shadows flickered as if considering her words. She could see flickers of recognition surfacing, glimmers of the lives trapped before her. "Emma!" she shouted again, locking eyes with her daughter, who stood at the edge of the crowd, her small body trembling, caught between two worlds. "Mommy!" Emma's voice rang out, a fragile thread among the chaos. Sarah felt the world constrict around her but held firm, drawing upon her love. "I'm right here, just a step away." She held out her hand, reaching for her daughter, her heart wide open, bursting with unconditional love. "You're stronger than this darkness, Emma. Remember who you are." The shadows shivered, the hold on the children faltering, and then something shifted. One child broke free from the thrumming mass, cascading light spilling as they fled the grip of despair. A second followed, and then a third, their ethereal forms shimmering with newfound clarity. The laughter turned from malicious to joyful, an explosion of hope cutting through the darkness. "Yes, keep going. Don't let them win," Sarah shouted, thundering with encouragement, her voice like an arrow to pierce the night. The children rallied, turning away from the abyss as realizations spread through them like wildfire. Emma's gaze flickered, anguish turning to determination. "Mommy, I'm coming." Time raced as Sarah's heart exploded with hope. "Just step into the light, baby. Together." But the shadows roared, furious, crashing forward, a darkness that clawed and snarled, desperate to reclaim what slipped away. "Join us," they howled, and the gaunt man lunged, desperate to overwhelm her. "No," Sarah shouted, feeling her fury ignite, a volcanic force. The light around her swelled, an unending tide rising to meet the darkness. "We will not surrender." Then, a brilliant light bloomed from Emma, erupting like a supernova, wrapping around Sarah, illuminating them both. Together, they surged toward one another, defiant of the clutches of darkness. "Mommy, I believe in us." With a final push, they collided into each other, a vibrant blaze scorching the shadows into retreat. The darkness screamed as it fractured, shadows dissipating into gusts of night rushing away. The gaunt man twisted in horror, unable to hold onto his power, his cries swallowed by the retreating light as the last flicker of shadow vanished. Sarah and Emma found themselves enveloped in a cocoon of brilliant radiance. Warmth flooded through them, affirming the connection they forged like an unbreakable bond. "Did we?" Emma whispered, blinking against the glow, eyes wide with wonder. "I think we did," Sarah breathed, allowing tears of relief to spill forth, intertwining with laughter. "We're free." Hand in hand, they stood in the midst of the blinding light, knowing they had faced the darkness together face to face, mother and daughter, illuminated against the remnants of despair. the echoes of the past faded, replaced by the sweet harmony of their shared triumph. As they stepped forward, merging into a hopeful future, the ghosts of their neighborhood whispered softly in remembrance, but no longer bore the weight of terror. And in that moment, Sarah understood they were finally home. As this chapter comes to a close, remember this feeling and do not take it for granted. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will lift your spirit. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything. Let us keep this amazing journey going together.